welcome to the live stream. Good to see folks. Tugboat was here early, ready for the pre-show music. Hi Media Rex, hi Tugboat. Good to see you all. If you are a member of the Personal Finance Society, or you're on the $1 forums and follow my journal, you probably know that I've had a really crappy week. So because of that, we'll see how much live stream we get in today. The topic for today is impulse spending, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm just like, I'm wiped. It's been a hard week for a lot of just personal reasons. The donut for today. So there's only one donut today. I did 2 donuts last week because I'm like trying to go through all of the ones this month. But this one is a taro milk tea donut. It isn't as beautiful as it was when I got it. I'm sorry. Once again, I have to haul it farther now. But it's got a jasmine tea, like the green on it is jasmine tea. And then it's a taro cream and then little like boba taro pearls on the top. So it's really got like a great, interesting collection of flavors. I don't know. I don't normally like these like super cream-filled donuts, but it's interesting enough flavor-wise. I think I'm intrigued to see what happens with that. And yeah, I think that's like the main things that we have to do today. How is everybody doing this week? I hope that you have had a better week than me, which is frankly gonna be probably fairly easy. It's been a lot of things going on. So I haven't posted about this other than on the forums and to Patreons. But Miss Dora, House Princess, Chief Box Inspector of Oh My Dollar, passed away on Saturday. She, as if you've watched these live streams, you know that she's had like a stuffed up cold for like over a month, and she'd been to the vet several times, and they thought it was a cold, but they couldn't figure out what it was. This week they figured out that it was actually the cancer that caused her eye to get removed 3 years ago had come back fairly aggressively. And it was, there were no treatment options, and she was really at the end of options. She'd stopped eating, and yeah, it really, really sucked. And she passed peacefully on Saturday. But yeah, it's really rough, and we're not very happy about it. And the house feels really empty now without Dora here. So I'm not sure what the point of a couch is if you don't have a cat to sit on your lap. That's generally how I feel. I'm doing a lot like better at processing it now. Like I've had a little bit of distance. It's Tuesday. She passed Sunday. We found out what was going on Thursday. So it was both very fast, but I kind of am processing it a lot better. So, and that was just one of several circumstances this week. That's the one that's like the most obvious because just the missing Dora everywhere being in the house is really obvious. But other deaths in my circles this week, including one really terrible murder that you can read about in the newspaper, of the boyfriend of someone I used to work with at the Harry Potter Alliance. Anyway, it's just been rough. Like there's a lot. So does the audio seem low? I might just be low. Is it audio seem low to anybody else? Seems like room audio rather than close mic audio. Okay, other people are hearing that too. Interesting. Oh, I have a theory. Hold on. Stand by, y'all. We're gonna fix it. Can you hear it now? Does it sound better now? Let me know. Today I was wondering, how does budget finance work with ADHD, and you delivered. Great. I'm glad to hear that. I actually have several other videos and live streams on this topic. So if you want to dive more into it, when I maybe gave it with a little better, higher energy, then that is a thing. David says, I heard about it from Erin, my sympathies. Oh, thank you, everybody. Yes, she was the best, most perfect kitty. I agree. Very good baby, 100 out of 10. She was objectively the best. Sounds the same. Interesting. Let me see if I can get my online tech support to check in it. Can you check the mic's levels on the ATEM? It seems like my boom mic isn't working. Okay. David says, I spent the weekend worrying about relatives in Israel who are fortunately all safe as of now. I'm really glad your relatives are safe. Yeah. I had someone who wanted to engage me in conversation about Israel today at skating, and I had to cover it this weekend. I had to work this weekend. And we even cut into special coverage for a little while. And I was just sort of like, I don't personally have the bandwidth to discuss an issue that is very complicated and after all of the personal tragedies weeks. But I'm very happy that your family is safe. I hope that everyone's safe there. It all is very scary. Eating nuggets, talking budgets. Maybe we'll switch to a nugget-based thing. It's loud enough though. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's up with that. I do think that my IT will check into it. Luckily, I am very loud. Here, I got another theory. ATEM was like not working right before the stream, and so Aaron, I had to restart it. So I don't know if when Aaron was trying to diagnose it, maybe that was a factor. Okay, I just replugged in the mic. We'll see if that makes any difference. David says, I wasn't going to ask you to. It's too complicated. Oh, no, I didn't think that you were asking me to. This was the tendency of some people to think that someone's ethnicity or religion means that they should have opinions on world events that are located nowhere near them, which is a thing that's really frustrating to me. So I will run my volume up on my laptop. Newbold One says bingo. Does it sound any better now? Okay, well, I'm not sure what's up with that. Okay, should we talk about, hopefully I can maintain focus long enough. No irony intended. Hopefully I can maintain focus long enough to talk about some strategies for impulse spending. Let's dive into the topic because frankly I'm drained and I don't know how long I want to live stream for today. Okay, so basic things to let's start from the top. What is impulse spending and when is it a problem? We are all going to do impulse spending at some point. Impulse spending is just a part of existing, especially in a society where you are constantly inundated with consumption-based advertising, with a lot of environments that are engineered to make you impulse spend, and also part of just being a human that experiences emotions. At some point, you will be slightly nervously dysregulated and probably spending will change. And it might be that you have really dramatic shifts in emotions. Like, you know, I know a lot of people with bipolar disorder they really fall into the category of spending can be really dangerous for them, especially on the manic side of bipolar disorder, because that dysregulation can cause like really big spending habits. But even if you are not someone that has such wild shifts as someone that it has bipolar disorder, it doesn't mean at some point you aren't going to maybe go to the grocery store when you're a little hungry and come back with things that maybe weren't on your list. It might mean that, you're up late accidentally looking at pictures of your ex on Facebook at 2 a.m. or whatever, and then suddenly you start filling up an Amazon cart. It might be that you are being constantly given advertisements for Amazon Prime Day or deals from your favorite websites. Email marketers really feel the need to tell me constantly that N95 masks are on sale and that they're about to go out of business. I like the N95 masks that I buy, but they literally text me several times a day telling me that the world is ending. And at some point, that will probably mean that I'm buying some N95 masks. We're all going to do a little bit of impulse or emotional spending. What kind of figuring out ways to curb it is to reduce the amount of regrettable spending you do and trying to corral it so that it doesn't interfere with your other bigger financial goals. And we're all going to be on different parts of this spectrum about how likely we are to do it. I'm someone who will put off spending for a really long time, where I keep this huge spreadsheet of things I want for non-essential purchases, and I'll push it out and out and out. But then it kind of sometimes will be the straw that broke the camel's back. If I have, for example, a really terrible week, that's where I'll start to be like, for example, I was like, is there anything I can buy on this list that'll make me feel better? Because my impulse was like, I deserve something, and obviously I exist in a capitalist society, so the way that I will solve this problem is by buying something off my things I want list. I haven't yet done it, but trust me, I've been thinking about it. But I definitely got some rice and beans out at a restaurant because I didn't feel like cooking on the day that we had to put Dora down. Like there are things that will happen, and then one of the other problems is that if you plan for a long time, sometimes the impulse lever will be cranked. Okay, so we've kind of established what impulse spending is. Impulse spending doesn't even necessarily need to be like I went wild at the store and got a bunch of stuff I didn't expect. It can also just be all of the crafty ways that marketers get you to kind of up your shopping cart total. You know that you need to buy a thing that costs $40, but then when you go to fill your cart, it's like, oh, if you just add $10, then you will get free shipping. And you're like, well, the shipping is $9.99 anyway. I might as well add something. And those kind of tactics can really contribute to the kind of impulse spending that can be challenging. So there's a couple different tactics that you can use. One of them I mentioned is a tactic I've been using for a long time, and it works for some people, and for other people it sounds absolutely awful. If you are a planner or bullet journaling kind of person or a spreadsheet kind of person, I could see this working really well for you. If you are someone that has ADHD and you already have some kind of impulse control problems, this may or may not work depending on other aspects of your personality. So what I do is I keep a list of non-essential purchases that I want. I have a little spreadsheet. I'm pretty sure if you go to ohmydollar.com/things-I-want, you'll be able to download the Google sheet that I use for this. Let me check to see if that link works, because last week I tried to give a link from memory and it did not work. Okay, things I want. Yeah, it does work. Okay. So, ohmydollar.com/things-I-want. Okay, this is the URL where you can go to download it. is in the chat. Otherwise, you can just type it in. So this tracker, when I want things that are non-essential, so, you know, I don't do this for food, I don't do this for utilities, but I want it for things that are like clothing is a great example. I will put it in the spreadsheet. And I've been doing this for like 18 years. And one of the advantages of it is that I get to go back and look and see what like 20-year-old punk rock me wanted versus what I want now. And I can even see stages in life where I get kind of hyper fixated on one sort of thing, and then I put a bunch of stuff in that category. This works really well if you're someone that's kind of planning oriented. And I have a couple different columns in the spreadsheet. I put like what the thing I want is, how much I want it on a scale of 1 to 10, how much the price is, and then the date that I first decided I wanted this thing. And I also have a column for what values it represents. Because, you know, one of my values is whimsy. I think whimsy is important in life. And for example, if I want a pair of space boots that have wings on them, a thing I own now, I would put them on there, and probably the value it would represent would be whimsy. You know, if I want to get like a new bicycle pannier, which are like can be very expensive, I will put it in there as like, you know, bicycling and like climate impact is really important to me. And by getting this new pannier, blah, 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 blah. I know some people that also will try to like how much they'll use this item or the amount of uses they think that item will get. I do this for relatively small things too. I'll do it for things like washi tapes or stickers for planners or, you know, and essentially for a long time, my line was over $10. Now it's actually a little higher with inflation because $10 is a pretty low marker. The reason this system works relatively well is that one, sometimes the act of putting the item on the list implements a bit of a waiting period for me. Just like doing that kind of makes me reconsider if I even want it. It kind of, it puts a little bit of the brakes on the purchase decision because I'm like, oh, I have to go enter it into the spreadsheet. And in the course of entering it into the spreadsheet, I have to really consider if it's even worth the effort of doing that. And that is a good way to kind of just take a step back, right? One of the other things that this does is that if I put a price in there, I have like an auto calculator on the sheet. After the date in there, it'll tell me how long I've wanted the item. If I, for example, decide I need to spend some money to make myself feel better, as I was thinking about after what happened to Dora, I will walk through the look through the list and see if there's anything that kind of fulfills that's been on there for a long time. Sometimes things have been on there for a really long time and they cost very little money, and I realize I don't actually want them because they've been on there for like 180 days and I still haven't bought the item and I don't need the item. So I just kind of move back from that. The other thing it does is when I put the price in there, it kind of acts as a way for me to check in about, okay, you know, clothing items are a really good example. I like a lot of very expensive European brands, and I will put them in there in the things I want category. And if they've been in there for a while, when they go on sale, I know if it's a real sale. This is particularly notable if you use a lot of these kind of bigger box websites like Amazon to order things. A lot of those prices, they'll convince you that there's a sale going on. Prime Day is a really prime example of this. Prime Day, they'll just make up a higher price and then act like it's a huge sale. But if you've been entering it in at the time you first wanted, you'll know if that sale is real or not. It does also make it easier to purchase things outside of that impulse, of that immediate, I need to get this, I'll get that bolt of dopamine. It makes it easier to purchase it down the line. Okay, there's some people for which they're like, this is absolutely not going to work for me. I'm never going to make a list of all the things that I want to buy that are non-essential. Certainly ain't going to do it for stuff that's over like $10. You're wild. Great, that's fine. That works for me. I know some people for which that can be a really effective mechanism. Um, I also think it's good if it's like combined with some sort of envelope budgeting system like YNAB or cash envelopes, because when you've got a little extra money, you can kind of look through the list and see what you can buy as a treat for yourself. And then it's something you actually want versus something that's just like the first thing you see when you think you deserve a treat. Moving on from that, the one of the big things that you can do is when you are emotionally dysregulated, remove yourself from the temptations. If you are someone that is prone to impulse control a lot of the time, like impulse control struggles a lot of the time, which is common for a lot of people with ADHD, then one thing you can do is just stop getting stop getting and block the things that tempt you. So for me, I know if I scroll on my planner Instagram, because I have a separate planner Instagram so that it's like a really desirable feed, but I talk myself into how I need all of these planner stickers, which I like obviously don't because I have way too many planner stickers. I'll talk myself into that if I'm like in a sad mood and I decide to scroll on my planner Instagram, then I'll suddenly be like filling up carts with planners. Resist it. There is a app that I recommend installing. It's called 1 Second. I think it's available on both Android and iPhone. What it does, if social media is a trigger for you, which I know especially Instagram is for me, all it does is make you wait 1 second and ask you if you really want to open up your social media apps, and you can trigger on and off which ones you want. And I have found that's very effective for the like keep trying to load things because I hate to use the word addiction around social media because I think sometimes it really belittles a lot of other types of addiction. But if you are someone that's constantly seeking out that dopamine rush of opening the apps and looking for something, if you're someone prone to opening them when you're bored, which is when you're very likely to get into it sounds like maybe the audio situation is getting worked out. That's what that ding was. If you're someone who's likely to open those, and when you're bored, you're likely to kind of fall into those impulse shopping, don't go to the places that you know will be there. Don't go on Etsy, don't go on Amazon, don't go on eBay, wherever your kind of danger place is. If you are like, if in your body, your nervous system is dysregulated, like if you're feeling whatever it might be, jittery, weird in your stomach, fluttery nerves, whatever that kind of symbol for you is. If you're someone who's bipolar and like mania is like you're starting to come up on a manic cycle, stay away from those places. If you feel like you need a higher level of intervention because this is really dangerous for you, think about either creating self-set triggers around the kind of impulse spending. So this could be physically freezing cards in ice. So you would take your cards and you would put them in water and you'd put them in the freezer and like in a chunk of water. For the new chip cards, you do have to wrap it in a Ziploc bag first because the ice can damage the thing if you don't have it in a Ziploc bag. What is the goal of this? Well, it creates an actual waiting period where you have to melt the ice in order to spend, and that physical time will help you like reconsider and even maybe get yourself a little more regulated before you do the spending. The other things that you can do would be one, by the way, if you're using the freezing cards on ice method, you also, guess what you need to do? You need to delete your cards out of your browsers and the websites. If you are someone that is extremely prone to impulsive spending behavior, delete that card. Do not save that card in ShopPay. Do not save it in Amazon. Do not save it in your browser. You make yourself have to go type that darn thing in every time. If you are someone who is like mostly a cash spender and your impulse spending is in person, stop bringing cash with you. Only bring the amount that you're willing to impulse spend. Maybe it's a 20. You know, if you cut off your supply, so to speak, or make it harder to access, that can implement some of the waiting periods. If you find that you are able to do this, generally just a waiting period, whether or not it's got hoopla of ice or not having cards with you or whatever, is implementing a 24-hour waiting period before you buy anything. If it's physical items, stores will usually hold until at least the end of day, if not next day. Items, this is particularly good for like clothing items where you're like, maybe I want it, or like maybe I only look good in the like lighting in the dressing room and I need to really consider it. Because they do all sorts of things to try to make you buy stuff. That Target dollar spot right at the front where it's like a bunch of tiny cute things, it is literally the impulse section and it is trying to make you do that. I am a huge fan of abandoned carts online, the fill up the cart, walk away method, and just wait. 24 hours is not usually going to be make or break it, especially for a non-essential purchase. And if you're just kind of doing that kind of late night spending where you don't really think about it, another way to implement a 24-hour waiting period is to lock your cards. So some banks will allow you to put a lock on spending on your card. It's actually intended generally for you to, if you've like lost your card, but you don't think it's been stolen and you need to look for it, you can lock it so that people, like if someone does find it, they can't spend on it, but you can use it for yourself too. Put a lock on it, and then you have to go log into their terrible app or whatever and unlock it before you spend. And that is another way to implement a waiting period. So to review, keeping a list of things that you want is a way to have a waiting period and also to take advantage of good deals and also to kind of take a pause and assess if you really want something. 2, the one thing that you can do is implementing waiting periods, or which could be physical barriers to spending, or it could just be a rule for yourself that you have a 24-hour waiting period for all purchases over a certain amount. If you have a partner or a trusted friend, especially if you're someone that is a little dangerous with the impulse spending, you can have a trusted friend that you always check in with for purchases over a certain amount. Maybe it's over 50, maybe it's over 100, maybe it's over 500. Whatever that might be for you, it might be a gut check. Because if you're like really decide one day that you're going to get into knitting using special wool that only comes from a certain kind of sheep in Mongolia, and you get really excited about it and you fill up a cart and it turns out it needs different needles and you also need to get a loom and you've bought all this stuff before 2 a.m. when you have never actually crocheted more than a single like granny square, then maybe what you need to do is be like, hey, this cart is over $100. What I need to do is I need to check in with that friend about this. Okay, so check-ins, waiting periods, and lists. Now, let's say that these impulses are less online cart temptations, whatever they might be. Let's say that you find yourself doing kind of regrettable impulse spending, and it's becoming a habit, but you haven't been able to figure out what it is. Tracking when you kind of do regrettable spending, I mentioned last week that if you first start out doing a budget, I recommend tracking on paper for at least a week and then doing smiley faces about how you felt about the purchase afterwards, like a smiley face, a neutral, or a frowny face. Let's say that every time you get out of therapy, you end up going and getting a massive burrito because you go to therapy right across the street from the burrito place, and it makes you feel sad, right? So you decide to, drown your feelings in rice and black beans, and you think it'll make you feel better. And then inevitably, because you ate a bunch of cheese, it's a little regrettable later. So, what would you do to curb that impulse spending? Well, there's a couple different options. One, you can identify something cheap or free that you can do instead. You've got these emotions, you got to put them somewhere. You probably want to do something. Is it because you want to treat yourself? Is it because you're hungry? Is it because you want to pause before you go back to the office and lunch feels like a good pause after therapy so you can process your feelings? Maybe you can take a walk. Maybe you can pack a lunch that is like going to work a little better for you and have a different kind of ritual that you do before you go back to the office after therapy in this example. Maybe you could get a coffee, a nice coffee treat, which is half the price of a burrito or something like that. Maybe you can find a way to avoid the trigger. So for you, maybe it's that you drive past the burrito place on the way home from therapy. And if you just went a different route, you wouldn't have that trigger in your mind. You wouldn't be tempted by it. You wouldn't decide that you need a burrito because you see it, or Taco Bell, or whatever it might be. Maybe it's actually a value in disguise. Maybe you're beating yourself up for, spending money on a burrito every week, but it's the thing that gets you to go to therapy, and therapy is a thing that is really important for you right now. You want to work on your mental health. You value it. It is a value. And what you need to get yourself there is the promise of a burrito afterwards, in which case maybe you would just put it in your budget because it is actually a value representation. Maybe, you find yourself that you're always kind of impulsively getting a Starbucks every week when you go volunteer at the cat shelter in the suburbs. Well, if it's important to you to volunteer at the cat shelter, and that is what motivates you to drive out there and put the time in, then maybe that's just a thing that you put in your budget now. It's just a volunteer expense, and you plan for it. Okay. That's one of the things. Also, sometimes giving yourself grace. If you're someone that is really beating yourself up for impulse spending, but the impulse spending isn't really affecting your long-term financial goals, and you just keep getting mad at yourself about it, you might not be fixing the problem. Being in that cycle of beating yourself up about it will make you feel bad, and then you'll end up overcorrecting and then never buying anything, and then all of a sudden it'll go back around, right? So giving yourself a break and giving yourself some grace can be actually a good way to handle it. I realize that sounds like I'm just saying treat yourself, but also it's okay to treat yourself. It's just a matter of recognizing if it is interfering with your other financial goals. And you're really the way that your values and your money interfere. Okay, so we've got, figure out what you can do that's free or cheap that might meet this value. Let's say you keep getting going to a bakery to meet with a friend every Sunday, and impulse buying a pastry because every time the pastries look really good and it wasn't the plan. Maybe meeting with a friend is what's really important to you, and you don't have to go to the bakery. Maybe you can meet your friend somewhere else and go for a walk and do something for your cheap. These are ways that you can kind of conquer it. Now, we're going to go back to the online shopping because this is a big area for a ton of us these days. This is in the boat of the Amazon Prime Day and these fake deals and the constant texts I get from the people that make my K95 masks, which I never really thought that medical masks would be a thing I would be impulse spending in 2019, but here we are. They're in cute colors and they're very comfortable. So what are some of the things you can do online? Well, one, as someone who makes some money off ads, I wouldn't generally encourage this, but if you are finding that you are really struggling with impulse spending, get an ad blocker. The ads they're designed to interfere with your brain to make you think that you want things. And a ton of advertising now is integrated. So if you are someone who gets really tempted by, I'm going to use my planner Instagram again, that is where I'm at. Most of the stuff that's tempting me is not from actual ads that we've blocked from an ad blocker. It's from staring at feeds or watching reviews of clothes on YouTube, which I like didn't think that I needed that. And then I decided to go look up a review video, and now I'm like filling my cart with more things. So this is a example of you've got to recognize how your media consumption feeds into your habits. And if you're really struggling with that, keep a log. And I know that I keep telling people to track stuff, and which is like, hard for some people, but a lot of you are planner people. So I feel like tracking is fun for you. But if every time you have one of these like impulse spendings, notice the people, places, things around you at the time that you did some sort of regrettable impulse spending. Were you in Target and you were thirsty and suddenly you came home with a bunch of tiny cute pumpkin ghosties? Were you at 2 a.m. and you knew you should have gone to bed, and then suddenly you thought you were going to get your life together, so you bought like 5 new planners that you didn't even remember the next day? Were you feeling really bad about your body, and so that you went online and you suddenly subscribed to some overpriced like fitness app or something like that? Like, notice what the kind of triggers are for you, and then figure out how you can like remove them in a way that works for you. Now, this is where the online impulse spending situation can be really challenging for a lot of people, specifically with ADHD, although it is a large category. The hobbies, hobby spending. And I've had tons of live streams. I've done lots of content on how to kind of keep a rein on hobby spending. And I am in my forest of washi tape over here. So I think y'all know that I do a little bit of hobby spending. If you are finding that you get hyper excited and hyper fixated on some new hobby that you're going to do, and you need to buy a bunch of supplies, what you need to do is figure out how to scale back. You've got to figure out what the lowest viable product of getting into a new hobby might be. Once you get into a hobby, it gets a lot easier to discern what is and isn't worth it. But if you're still in that exploration stage where you're like, oh, I'm thinking about getting into knitting, or I've decided I want to build custom keyboards, or I've decided I'm going to learn to cultivate mushrooms, like whatever the exciting new hobby, I'm not discouraging you from the hobby. What I am saying is if you want to get into a hobby, you have to figure out how to start small. And I think that can be really challenging for a lot of neuro-spicy people because they want to go all in. When they go all in, they do tons of research, they get really excited about it. And one of the things I see people do is that they do so much research, they are looking at content that is meant for people that have been doing it a lot longer. And so they're like, well, I don't want to get a crappy beginner fountain pen because I'm reading about how those don't have the best kind of nib types, or they won't take this certain kind of special ink that only comes out once a year that I am obviously going to get. And you're reading stuff or consuming media from people that have been in the hobby for a really long time, and you are thinking of yourself as their peer. And so you've decided that the only way to get into fountain pens is to buy a $400 fountain pen. But there is usually a minimum viable version of a hobby. And there are expensive hobbies, but like let's take horseback riding as an example of an expensive hobby, just to have a really extreme example here. Obviously, owning a horse, boarding one at a barn, getting saddles and dressage and transporting a horse to different sporting events, that's all very, very expensive. And literally no one would say a beginner horse rider should buy a horse, board it, get all the tack, start taking it out to dressage competitions when they haven't even learned to gallop yet. Nobody would recommend that. But I see a lot of people with ADHD do that for a new hobby, where they've not done anything yet and they decide they need to get the most advanced version of it. So for horseback riding, obviously what you would do is you would find like a weekend learn to ride program or a weekly lesson at some barn where other people's horses gets boarded and then are in a group lesson in order to like investigate if you want to do it, right? And also probably don't get into horseback riding. It's very expensive. Some people love it. Not to crap on it. It's also a lot more affordable if you live in a rural area, but it's still a very expensive hobby. You have to consider the scalable version of it. If you are trying to get into drawing, is there one decent pen that you can use to start drawing, and then can you check a bunch of books out of the library? Are there free tutorials that you can watch on YouTube? You don't have to get the best paper and the best notebooks and everything to find out if you like something, and to start digging into it. One thing that you can do within the realm of a new hobby is set a goal for yourself of something that you want to accomplish that you can do with your minimal viable version of this. That once you've done that, once you've spent a certain number of hours doing something, once you've accomplished your, knit your first entire blanket or whatever it might be, then you can invest in the next level of stage of it. And I realize that all of the things I'm describing are a lot of kind of self-control, which can be really challenging if you have ADHD and you get excited about this. But I'm a huge fan of the book called Renaissance Soul. And it talks all about, I think it appeals to a lot of ADHD people, which is like people that are they have a lot of varied interests. I consider myself a Renaissance Soul, which is a scanner based on the nomenclature of the book. And in the Renaissance Soul book, she recommends trying to figure out what the thing that causes you to, if you're someone who like gets really into something, gets really good at it, and then kind of abandons it, or gets really good at something and then kind of abandons it, and you're just like, you're in this cycle of like, you go through a bunch of hobbies and divergent interests, and it really drives you crazy. That book is actually meant as a career book, but I think one of her pieces of advice is very good for either hobbies or businesses that ADHDers are constantly trying to come up with a new one that they really want to get into. And I'm someone who does this. She recommends that you get a really nice, big, beautiful, beautiful book. Yes, I am recommending that you buy a notebook, which is really funny given the topic of this live stream. But a beautiful book, and this is your like Leonardo da Vinci book. And you write, if you're someone who likes to like, one of the things for me, I love like planning something, but I don't always like following through with it. So she says you're writing the guide for someone that wants to do this in the future. If you're constantly having like a business idea and you don't actually want to implement the business, or that is something that you find out later, it's all of your sketches and plans for the things that you want to do. You put in this big, beautiful book, and it helps create that. It helps you have somewhere to put it, even if you know that realistically this dollhouse building hobby that you've conceived of and you want to buy a bazillion things for is actually off. It like isn't. You're gonna have an unfinished dollhouse for 10 years. If you are someone that does that, I think that process of like creating the book that is for just all of your plans, if you can see it as a way of fulfilling, scratching that itch of like getting really excited about something, it's your like research book, and you can see it as something you're making, it can help channel some of that energy you have and that excitement you have when you want to get into a new hobby or a new field or whatever it is, without making you feel upset about all of the supplies that you got for this thing that's now abandoned because you gave up on that hobby. This is a good idea. I think it is a really good idea. And then one of the advantages of this is if you have a potential hobby or thing that you want to build or something that you want to get into that is very costly, you can do all of the planning without the buying and figure out how much it's going to cost. And this is one of those ways to kind of maybe creatively, if the spreadsheet is not a thing for you, creatively scratch that itch of finding out how much something would actually be. For me, one of the really expensive things I like to do and I enjoy planning is ridiculous trips, right? And I have full like pages where I've plotted everything out and where I'm going to go on individual days and when the trains connect to each other and what ferries I would have to take and which ferries, if they ever come back from a 10-year break due to a war in some country or whatever, I would take. And I list this all out. And one of the fun parts for me is figuring out how much that would cost. And I have done this with enough trips where it has been very helpful when I have decided to actually go on the trip because then I know how much I need to save. And this could be true if you want to, like, let's say you've decided you're going to build a palace for your chickens and you got really deep into like researching all these amazing chicken coops that everyone was going to build and the supplies are quite expensive. And you get really into it. Instead of going out and buying all the supplies and then leaving them in a pile in your backyard until you actually get the motivation to do it, instead pour all that motivation into drawing out your plans, researching how much that might be. And then when you're at that next stage, you'll have all of that available rather than jumping immediately to the buying. Okay. Oh my God. There's so many comments. So I'm going to go back and scroll. Yes. Retail therapy. I do agree. What does one do with the space boots? Okay. My space boots are, they're just out of frame up there. But I wear them all the time. I wear them to talks. I wear them on bike rides. Whenever I need a little extra zest. I wear them to conferences sometimes. Yeah. I value the whimsy of this YouTube channel, that's for certain. Thanks. Christy says, I totally had a therapy croissant for years. Got me. But I have a question. Did it work? Did the therapy croissant work? So when I was working a terrible job in 2016 in politics during the 2016 election, which was not a great time, I, for quite a while, was going and walking every afternoon to get a coffee. And it wasn't actually because I wanted a coffee. In fact, the coffee usually made me feel worse because I'd had so many coffees at that point. I was really jittery and it was a very anxiety-ridden job. And I realized I was going to buy the coffee every day just because it was an excuse to get out of the office. And so I started just telling my coworkers I was going out to get a coffee, but actually I just went on a walk and it worked just as well. Minnie says, in the last 3 months, 3 credit cards offered me an increase. One of them emailed me a pre-approval. I called them asking me if they were me as one. 3 a.m. is how I got my new work PC. It's a wonderful gaming PC. It does not sound like a plane taking off when I boot up. Well, I can't criticize you for that because I just bought this new MacBook a couple weeks ago, and it is so, you can't hear it at all. You can't hear it at all right now. Years ago, I could memorize my card numbers. I definitely have my card number memorized. Interesting. I have a lot of cards, so I do not have them memorized. David says, David has a next level suggestion. Why not make it a website, then put ads next to it and monetize it and use that to fund the next obsession? I actually think that's a fantastic next level idea. I do think that that's its own level of possible obsession. However, I think that's quality suggestion there. Especially if it's like something really niche, there's going to be someone out there searching for it. And if you've already done all the research to figure out what the best thing is for it, turn that into a website. Oh my gosh, there's so many things going on then. When I learned there were equally good Dutch ovens for less from reviews on America's Test Kitchen, I did feel a pang of regret. Do you have a La Crusette? I am really curious if there's, who hasn't spent $330 on a bright orange La Crusette Dutch oven when they first learned how to cook? I mean, I have been eyeing a La Crusette, so I clearly need to go read the America's Test Kitchen Dutch ovens. Not hearing your PC fan is magical and shows me how long I can keep a machine. Yeah. My last one was 7 years, which I think is pretty long. I I've learned having cosmetic surgery as an impulse purchase is only on TV and in the US, not in Canada. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, is that a thing? People get cosmetic surgery as an impulse purchase? Other than Botox. I think people do Botox, which isn't surgery, but it's a cosmetic thing. What is it? Procedure. That's the word I'm looking for. This explains the disappointment of wanting cosmetic surgery. I have to lose 15 pounds and then have surgery and then save up for it. Yeah, I mean, I think that but yeah, I don't think that's an impulse purchase for anyone. I think even rich people, they're not an impulse purchase for. But I think that on TV, they try to make it look that way. Jennifer says, often the kit to make something costs more than just buying the thing already made. Yes, but the process can be enjoyable. Horse riding and chicken coop construction clearly Portland is very different than where I live. I mean, the chicken coops is definitely a Portland thing. I don't know very many horseback riders out here, but I knew a lot of them in Kentucky. So, but I was just trying to think of a really expensive hobby that wasn't buying a boat, because I don't think my average viewer is rich enough to buy a boat. I also don't think they're probably rich enough to do a horse unless they live somewhere where that is a little more affordable. All right, so let's do a little review here. 1, implementing waiting periods. Sometimes putting protections in that. 2, setting up a check-in buddy. This might be your partner. This might be a trusted friend. Whoever it is that you might think, especially for larger purchases, can be really good. This is particularly true if you are know that there's going to be certain cycles where you're going to have that sort of situation. Is there something cheap or free that you can do to kind of cut down on the hobby? 4, is there a way you can scratch the itch without necessarily buying all the things? Can you buy fewer things and then see how it works out? When I was getting into yoga, and I was considering doing yoga, I asked of my friends, hey, does anybody have a yoga mat that they're not using anymore? Because I live in Portland and everybody's done yoga at some point. And a friend was like, yeah, I was really into it for like 3 weeks and I'm not anymore. Would you like my yoga mat? I have now been using that yoga mat for like 8 years. So clearly I've gotten tons of use out of it. And that is like a perfect example of like, if you're willing to just put in a little bit more work, you might be able to find something for cheap or free. And you just need to like take a step back. I do think that there should be some sort of depot where people that, especially that have ADHD, that get really into hobbies, where they can like trade unfinished projects. I do know that this is a thing in like knitting and sewing communities now, where you can kind of list projects that are like 90% done or 50% done and like either sell or trade them to someone who will finish them to get them out of your house for work in progress. I don't know what they call it though. I'm not in really any of those communities online. So yeah. David says, I considered trying video production. That seems like a really expensive hobby. Yeah, that's another example of like, just because the hobby could make you money doesn't mean it will. Yes, it is a very expensive hobby. Many people will go out of the country and get their cosmetic surgery. That's true, and that makes it much harder to be impulse purchase. Oh my gosh, what a username for this stream. ADHD Queen says, hi peeps, so happy I caught the live stream. Hello, welcome. Okay, I feel like we should talk about, I want everybody's example of some impulse purchase they've bought. We've already gotten the orange Le Creuset Dutch oven while learning to cook. Tell me about your best or your worst impulse purchase. What would I say? Okay, actually, this impulse purchase is a good example. I ended up buying a $700 round trip plane ticket to Kenya really impulsively. It went super on sale. It was the depths of COVID, but like we were like starting to come out of it, and like travel was starting to resume. And I bought it like almost a year out because there was like a killer deal. $700 round trip from the West Coast US is like a bananas deal to Kenya. But also like a $700 plane ticket is not a normal impulse purchase. And I didn't have like any sort of like concrete plans for what I was going to do in Kenya. I was like, it's a year out. I'll figure it out. I'll like come up with a plan. I'll just buy this plane ticket. And realistically, what ended up working out in terms of like, I had money in the travel budget because it had been COVID and I hadn't been doing any traveling. I bought the plane ticket and then I had like a year to plan the trip. However, right before I was due to go, Omicron started happening and I ended up canceling it. But that was like probably one of the most expensive impulse purchases I've made. Oh, the other one was that I impulse bought a suit. So St. Harridan's, which doesn't exist anymore, was a company that made men's cut suits for femme bodies. And they had a pop-up in Portland, and I got to see myself in a suit, and I just like never seen myself in a men's cut suit. I'm 4'11". It's 150 centimeters for anybody in the rest of the world. I do not see myself in men's cut suits, right? That's not a thing. And I was like, damn, this looks amazing. Gender euphoria. And I shelled out like, I think like $550 for a suit because it was like a wool, like made to measure suit. And I would almost describe it as it was definitely impulse. I did not go there. I went to the pop-up intentionally, and I'd been following the brand for quite a while, but I didn't think I was going to go there and buy a suit that day, but I saw myself in it and I went, man. I did wear that for quite a few professional things. By the time I got it, it was really nice to have it, but I've slightly outgrown it, and I know it's a suit, so like it's fairly easy to get tailored, especially if it's only like you're a couple pounds heavier or whatever. But I have like a much more femme style than I did 10 years ago when I bought it. And it fits okay, but it doesn't fit like amazing. And then one of the problems I have is it's like really hard to resell because it's a men's cut wool suit meant for someone that is 4'11", whose measurements are 34, 26, 36. That's a very small category of people. And I like hold on to it because it's like quite a valuable thing. And like, I obviously like, I've been intending to either donate it or sell it like within the trans community because I feel like it would be like highly appreciated by F to M folks that are on the smaller side because it's really hard to find masculine clothing if you're on the smaller side. But I haven't done it yet. Anyway, that was an impulse purchase that I kind of regret. Like, it was fairly expensive. It was like a chunk of change compared to what I was making at the time, $19 an hour. No, at the time I was making $15 an hour. And like, I had the money, but I don't know if it was my best kind of one. Okay. Wow. So much. There are plenty of horses in banks. It is true. There are lots of horses in banks. When I was picturing a place that you could go for a group riding, I was picturing a place in banks. It's a real hamster wheel merry-go-round where one thing leads to another purchase-wise regarding video production. Yes, this is true. My friends and I talk about this all the time, but then you'd have to actually follow through with mailing your stuff to the depot, lol. Yeah, I honestly think like an abandoned project swap meet could work really well for people in a metro area where you like all you have to do is bring it on the day of and you just bring the project in whatever state it is. But yeah, I do think that like mailing it to the depot could be really challenging. There are Facebook groups asking for craft donations for native reserves. Oh, that's really interesting. Is it specifically for native crafts or just any craft donations? Planner supplies off Etsy at 2 a.m. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, we've been streaming for an hour. I like how I was like, oh, I'm not sure I'm up for streaming. And then, yeah. I just bought an Outlander style coat from Torrid and I'm honestly so happy with it. That sounds like an impulse purchase that was worth it. I'm hanging with family in New Jersey, missed most of the stream. There's always replay. Well, K-Walk Comedy, do you have a impulse purchase that you've made? I don't buy big ticket items impulsively, but a lot of little things and that bites me in the butt. Yeah, planner supplies I think is definitely one of those things where it really, really can add up. Because it'll be like $5 of stickers at a time. But if you're just filling up carts with $5 of stickers at a time, it really adds up. I completely understand why I keep my credit cards close to maxed out, so I impulse buy less, but the banks know to offer me an increase. Yeah, that is really, if you have good credit score, they're going to keep offering you an increase to try to like, so that you're not close to your max, but I can understand that. That suit sounds like my dream. Yeah, St. Harridan's isn't around anymore, but Wild Fang kind of has men's cut suits. And their stuff is a lot more affordable. It is not made to measure, but still pretty good. I'm on a no new clothes for 1 year budget, but I had to break down and get some winter socks because the cold from North Carolina to New Jersey hit me hard. Not an impulse purchase, but a means to an end. Yes, that's the thing that's really frustrating for me is that, like, I hate buying utility clothing, especially, like, clothing that I go through every year and I have to, like, repurchase it because it's not fun, but you need it and, like, your life is better with it. Tights are one of the big ones for me because I wear tights, like, pretty heavily in the winter, and because I bike to work, I often have, like, wool tights because it's very rainy here. But I did a no new clothes in 2016, I believe. And it was good. And I think I might be due for another round of that. I really don't know if I could do a whole year, though. I mean, I don't normally buy new clothes, but new to me clothes. Didn't I wear that in an older video? I mean, I own an awful lot of suits, so probably not that particular suit. I don't pull it out terribly often. It's pink lined, which is pretty great. It's just like a gray pinstripe wool suit. At the time that I got it, I was doing a lot of lobbying, fairly often in Capitol Hill. And so I wanted to have something that I could wear to lobby that wasn't like ultra femme pencil skirt with no pockets. And so, yeah. I've been experimenting with new socks. You have to buy a bunch to find the right ones, hiking, compression, etc. Yeah, I have these like wool socks that I get from Amazon, and they all have holes, and I keep darning them because I hate spending money on stupid utility items. Recent impulse purchase, $50 on cold brew concentrate from a coffee shop in New Jersey. No regrets, but it reminded me of someone who passed. I made a collage with some of the packaging, and it's delicious. Oh, that's really sweet. I almost had a coffee-related impulse purchase, and this was one of those things where you shouldn't probably scroll when you're sad. So I was sad about my princess. It was when she was still sick, but when we knew that she was gonna die. And I opened up Instagram and it advertised to me a coffee subscription company that all of the proceeds go to helping homeless cats. And I have been kind of into the concept of like these bougie fair trade coffee brands now getting into flavored coffee. I think that we're due for a flavored coffee renaissance among the hipsters. And the reason I say this is because pretty much everything that Midwestern moms liked in the 90s and early 2000s have now come back around and are being made cool by hipsters by like just making them like ecological or something like that. LaCroix was a good example of it. And I think flavored coffee is like due for the hipster reboot of like gourmet flavored coffee. And they had a brand that it's a coffee subscription that helps homeless kitties, and they had a pumpkin spice flavor, and I was like, oh, and I almost bought it. However, I shop pay. This was a good example of like how these little things can just make you reconsider. I got all the way to the checkout screen, on Instagram. So like I didn't even leave Instagram. I was in the browser. And my credit card auto-filled on Shop Pay, but it had my old address in it. And I was too lazy to do that because I would have had to re-enter the card, which means I would have had to get out from underneath the sick cat that was sleeping on me. And I didn't buy it. So, darn those socks you have to darn. Yes, I agree. I'm in education. I can't go to Staples Office Depot without impulse buying in the clearance section. I'm going to need it for something someday. Yeah. The educator hoarder syndrome is real. My friend was a preschool teacher for a long time. And when she moved out here, she was doing, she moved out from Indiana and like moved with a truck with a lot of stuff after like 20 years of being a preschool teacher. And when she moved out here, she was teaching English as a second language to like kids in China. So like getting up bananas early to teach from her basement. But she used all of her education supplies as like her room and her backdrop. And she had all of these things. And she was like, I don't regret having any of them. It's really great. She has like an entire curriculum room. I know I shouldn't buy things, especially not expensive things, so I buy secondhand, slightly to very broken things, which I then plan to fix and often don't. Yeah, I'm familiar. A lot of people have that, I'll fix it up and then it'll be fine. I feel like that, like, the one thing must be fixed before you can buy another broken thing rule is a pretty simple rule to implement. And if you have a large backstock, it's going to take a while. So you just kind of decide that the current project pile can't get any larger and it's a 1 in, 1 out rule. Education hoarder syndrome, EHS. I didn't know I had a name. I've been out of a classroom since 2008, but I still have a storage facility with my school crap. You feel like you never know when you're going to use it. Funny those unintended interventions. Wrong home address is a good credit card purchase intervention. Yeah, I've actually, I think, maybe been saved by it a few times since I've moved because I haven't like changed it on all those. My mother retired from teaching over a decade ago, still has a closet full of stuff that she can't go through. I think it's a good example. Okay, y'all, we've been streaming for an hour and we still haven't eaten the donut. And I told you all that I wasn't going to stream for that long, which was clearly a lie. Hey, if you didn't know, this is Talking Dough and Eating Donuts, and we talk about money and we eat donuts. Here's today's donut. I'm sorry it looks a little worse for wear. It looked prettier when I picked it up, I swear. It is a taro milk tea donut. This is a jasmine tea. Like this part right here is jasmine tea glaze. And then that's taro root cream. And then those are boba pearls on the top. It's extra fluffy on the inside. I'm not really getting any taro like flavor or the jasmine flavor right now. It's more like a texture overwhelm. I don't taste the jasmine at all. I'm going to try to just like eat this part and taste the jasmine. David says, I really want a 1910 German Black Forest cuckoo clock. How's that for an impulse buy? We're going to look this up when you get back from taking up the trash. I know jasmine tea is a light tea, but I don't taste it at all in this. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that it had some cream on the inside. I'm so, like, there's a green cream, so I imagine it's more of the jasmine cream, but, like, on the inside. Oh my gosh. I mean, flavor-wise, I don't think this is off the map. And I like taro-flavored stuff. The boba pearls are amazing. But I'd rather just be eating the boba pearls. ADHD Queen asks where the donut is from. These are almost always from Dough Donuts, which is a vegan donut shop in Northeast Portland. They have all the creative flavors. Although I was up in Seattle 2 weeks ago. So I did Mighty O Donuts. Newbold 1 says, I really like the lavender and green color combo. I agree. The color combo is really good. Frankly, I would rather just eat these bobas. Which really do have the boba mouth feel. Yeah. I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. Presentation-wise, great. I will finish it because I'm the only one here. There's not even a kitty here, sadly. But I feel like I would rather actually just have a milk tea. I don't think it translated donut flavor-wise as best. A donut made out of boba pearl sounds like an interesting possible novelty. I agree with that. Yeah, there was like so much sugar in it, I had to drink water afterwards. ADHD Queen says, I have to check them out. I'm out by Hillsborough. Oh yeah, well, next time you're in Portland, you should check it out. Pink Skies has a important question that reminds me to tell you that it is Budgetober over on the forums. Budgetober started October 1st. It is not too late to even join, let alone post your week 1 check-in, which is what Pink Skies asked. No, it is not too late. You will still get the badge. We are not very hard drivers of the rules. We're just there to be a supportive community. But I know a lot of people respond well to rules. So we always have the timeline for check-in over the weekend. But no, it's not too late. You'll still get a badge. I gave someone who checked in today a badge already. But Budgetober, you can still join. It's not too late to join for the month. You get free cat stickers, Halloween stickers. You get like a little mini RPG with a badge for each week that you check in. It is just an opportunity to do a budget reset, whatever that might be for you. People are doing all sorts of different things. It's totally free. It's on the Omadaller forums, omadaller.com/Budgetober. Just go to the thread. If you are not signed up for the forums yet, you might have to wait a couple minutes after you sign up to post on the thread. And that's just because we limit it because we do get a lot of bots on the forums. But after a couple minutes, you should be good to post on the thread for Budgetober, which you will find at this link, and join. And you should join. It's fun. It's our 5th year doing it. So David says, I'm out of electronics for now to rid myself. Yep, Budgetober hypes. A lot of people are doing it this year, so we'll see how many people make it till the end. But if you make it to the end, guess what you get? Cat stickers for free. I mail them anywhere in the world. They might all be Dora stickers this year. I might have Dora in various Halloween costumes as a little memorial to Dora. Still working on it, but I'm also looking into making washi tape of Dora because I'm sad. And I feel like washi tape will solve my problems. So I would make like a small batch run and I would sell it. We'll see. All right. Well, this has been a very lively chat. Thank you all for joining. And staying. Possum Planner says I was in such a panic to get that posted on Sunday night. Lol. Oh, don't. Possum Planner, when have you ever seen me be anything but chill about stuff? But some people respond really well to the rules, so I try not to advertise how much latitude I'll give people. But because some people really need to feel like the rules apply to them. So if the only way you were going to get it in was thinking that you had to get it in by Sunday night, then yes, you have to get it in. Washi doesn't solve all problems, lol. It might help heal the wound. She has more illustrations of her than probably most cats, so thank you so much for all the tips. I hope they're helpful. I believe in the budgeting playlist that should be linked to this video. If it isn't, I will do that afterwards, after the stream. But on the budgeting playlist on my profile, I have quite a few different live streams that are about ADHD, about impulse spending. So if you just need some accountability, you could put one of those on in the background if you find yourself struggling with it, and see what you can do. My October has been weird, so I'm glad I can still join. Yes, we'd love to have you. Possum Planner says, I think I need the rule to be honest. Okay, yep. It's like the professors that will absolutely give you an extension, but you tell them that you need a deadline. I'm happy to be that professor for you. The deadline is that you need to have it in over the weekend. Thank you by the way, for the recommendation for oblations. They weren't running the sale anymore, but I still got my weeks. Awesome! That's great. I think they're about to do another sale, but I probably shouldn't tell you that because then you can go spend more money. All right, thank you for the live. Nighty night. Thank you all. I will see you next Tuesday. Stay safe, stay hydrated, pet a cat if you have one available. Especially for me. Please pet a cat for me. I'm so sad about my kitty. And stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you all next Tuesday. Bye!